jog on, the footpath way, and merrily hant the stile a. A merry heart goes all the day. A sad one tires in a mile a. Winter's Tale. Let the reader conceive to himself a clear frosty November morning, the scene in open heath, having for the background that huge chain of mountains in which Skiddaw and Saddleback are preeminent. Let him look along that blind road, by which I mean the track so slightly marked by the passenger's footsteps that it can but be traced by a slight shade of verdure from the darker heath around it and, being only visible to the eye when at some distance, ceases to be distinguished while the foot is actually treading it. Along this faintly traced path advances the object of our present narrative. His firm step, his erect and free carriage, have a military air, which corresponds well with his well-proportioned limbs, and stature of 6 feet high. His dress is so plain and simple that it indicates nothing as to rank. It may be that of a gentleman who travels in this manner for his pleasure, or of an inferior person of whom it is the proper and usual garb. Nothing can be on a more reduced scale than his traveling equipment. A volume of Shakespeare in each pocket, a small bundle with a change of linen slung across his shoulders, an oaken cudgel in his hand, complete our pedestrian's accommodations, and in this equipage we present him to our readers. Brown had parted that morning from his friend Dudley, and began his solitary walk towards Scotland. The first 2 or 3 miles were rather melancholy, from want of the society to which he had of late been accustomed. But this unusual mood of mind soon gave way to the influence of his natural good spirits, excited by the exercise and the bracing effects of the frosty air. He whistled as he went along, not from want of thought, but to give vent to those buoyant feelings which he had no other mode of expressing. For each peasant whom he chanced to meet, he had a kind greeting or a good-humored jest. The hardy Cumbrians grinned as they passed, and said, "That's a kind heart, God bless un," and the market girl looked more than once over her shoulder at the athletic form, which corresponded so well with the frank and blithe address of the stranger. A rough terrier dog, his constant companion, who rivaled his master in glee, scampered at large in 1,000 wheels round the heath, and came back to jump up on him, and assure him that he participated in the pleasure of the journey. Dr. Johnson thought life had few things better than the excitation produced by being whirled rapidly along in a post-chaise, but he who has in youth experienced the confident and independent feeling of a stout pedestrian in an interesting country, and during fine weather, will hold the taste of the great moralist cheap in comparison. Part of Brown's view in choosing that unusual tract which leads through the eastern wilds of Cumberland into Scotland, had been a desire to view the remains of the celebrated Roman wall, which are more visible in that direction than in any other part of its extent. His education had been imperfect and desultory, but neither the busy scenes in which he had been engaged, nor the pleasures of youth, nor the precarious state of his own circumstances, had diverted him from the task of mental improvement. "And this then is the Roman wall," he said, scrambling up to a height which commanded the course of that celebrated work of antiquity. "What a people! Whose labors, even at this extremity of their empire, comprehended such space, and were executed upon a scale of such grandeur! In future ages, when the science of war shall have changed, how few traces will exist of the labors of Vauban and Cohorn, while this wonderful people's remains will even then continue to interest and astonish posterity. Their fortifications, their aqueducts, their theaters, their fountains, all their public works, bear the grave, solid, and majestic character of their language, while our modern labors, like our modern tongues, seem but constructed out of their fragments." Having thus moralised, he remembered that he was hungry, and pursued his walk to a small public house at which he proposed to get some refreshment. The alehouse, for it was no better, was situated in the bottom of a little dell, through which trilled a small rivulet. It was shaded by a large ash tree, against which the clay-built shed, that served the purpose of a stable, was erected, and upon which it seemed partly to recline. In this shed stood a saddled horse, employed in eating his corn. The cottages in this part of Cumberland partake of the rudeness which characterizes those of Scotland. The outside of the house promised little for the interior, notwithstanding the vaunt of a sign, where a tankard of ale voluntarily decanted itself into a tumbler, and a hieroglyphical scrawl below attempted to express a promise of good entertainment for man and horse. Brown was no fastidious traveler. He stopped and entered the cabaret, C note 1. Mumps's ha dot. The first object which caught his eye in the kitchen was a tall, stout, country-looking man, in a large jockey greatcoat, the owner of the horse which stood in the shed, who was busy discussing huge slices of cold-boiled beef, and casting from time to time an eye through the window, to see how his steed sped with his provender. A large tankard of ale flanked his plate of victuals, to which he applied himself by intervals. The good woman of the house was employed in baking. The fire, as is usual in that country, was on a stone hearth, in the midst of an immensely large chimney, which had 2 seats extended beneath the vent. On one of these sat a remarkably tall woman, in a red cloak and slouched bonnet, having the appearance of a tinker or beggar. She was busily engaged with a short black tobacco pipe. At the request of Brown for some food, the landlady wiped with her mealy apron one corner of the deal table, placed a wooden trencher and knife and fork before the traveler, pointed to the round of beef, recommended Mr. Dinman's good example, and, finally, filled a brown pitcher with her home brewed. Brown lost no time in doing ample credit to both. For a while, his opposite neighbor and he were too busy to take much notice of each other, except by a good-humored nod as each in turn raised the tankard to his head. At length, when our pedestrian began to supply the wants of Little Wasp, the Scotch store farmer, for such was Mr. Dinmont, found himself at leisure to enter into conversation. A bonny terrier that, sir, and a fell, fiery, shield at the vermin, I warrant him, that is, if he's been well entered, for it lies in that. Really, sir, said Brown, his education has been somewhat neglected, and his chief property is being pleasant companion. I, sir? That's a pity, begging your pardon, it's great pity that beast or body, education should I be minded. I have 6 terriers at hame, for by TWA couple of slow ones, 5 grews, greyhounds, and a ween, few, other dogs. There's Old Pepper and Old Mustard, and Young Pepper and Young Mustard, and Little Pepper and Little Mustard. I had them regularly entered, first Y rottens, rats, then Y stots or weasels, and then Y the tods and brocks, badgers, and now they fear nathing that ever cam Y a hairy skin on't. I have no doubt, sir, they are thoroughbred, but, to have so many dogs, you seem to have a very limited variety of names for them? Oh, that's a fancy o' my aunt to mark the breed, sir. The Duke himself has sent as far as Charlie's Hope to get no dandy Dinmant's pepper and mustard terriers. Lord, man, he sent Tam Hudson, the real name of this veteran sportsman is now restored, the keeper, and siccan a day as we had the Fumarts, polecats, and the Todds, and siccan a blithe gay down as we had a Guinean. Faith, that was a night. I suppose game is very plenty with you? Plenty, man. I believe there's mair hares than sheep on my farm, and for the moorfowl, or the grey fowl, they lie as thick as deuce in a ducat. Did ye ever shoot a black cock, man? Really, I had never even the pleasure to see one, except in the museum at Keswick. There now, I could guess that by your Southland tongue, it's very odd of these English folk that come here, how few of them has seen a black cock. I'll tell you what, ye seem to be an honest lad, and if you'll call on me, on Dandy Dinmont, at Charlie's Hope, ye shall see a black cock, and shoot a black cock, and eat a black cock too, man. Why, the proof of the matter is the eating, to be sure, sir, and I shall be happy if I can find time to accept your invitation. Time, man? What ails ye to gie hame whiny the now? How do ye travel? On foot, sir, and if that handsome pony be yours, I should find it impossible to keep up with you. No, unless ye can walk up to 14 mile an hour. But ye can come hour the night as far as Rickcarton, where there is a public, or if ye like to stop at Jockey Greaves at the Huch, they would be blithe to see ye, and I am just gone to stop and drink a dram at the door wy him, and I would tell him you're coming up, or staked good wife, could ye lend this gentleman the Goodman's Galloway, and I'll send it hour the waste in the morning wy the Collant? Lad. The Galloway was turned out upon the fell, and was swear to catch a wheel, there's nae help for it, but come up the morn at ony rate, and now, good wife, I'm on ride, to get to the Liddell or it be dark, for your waist has but a kittle, ticklish, character, ye ken yourself. Hout fie, Mr. Dinmont, that's no like you, to gie the country an ill name. I wot, there has been none stirred in the waste since Sonny Culloch, the travelling merchant, that Raleigh Overdees and Jock Penny suffered for at Carlisle twa years since. There's no ane in Newcastle would do the like that now, we be at true folk now. Aye, Tib, that will be when the deal's blind, and his eens no sair yet. But hear ye, good wife, I have been through maist feck, part, o Galloway and Dumfriesshire, and I have been round by Carlisle, and I was at the Stainchy Bank fair the day, and I would like ill to be rubbed say near hame, so I'll take the gate. Hae ye been in Dumfries and Galloway, said the old dame, who sat smoking by the fireside, and who had not yet spoken a word. Troth have I, good wife, and a weary round I've had o't. Then ye'll maybe ken a place they see Ellangowan? Ellangowan, that was Mr. Bertram's, I ken the place weel enough. The laird died about a fortnight since, as I heard. Died, said the old woman, dropping her pipe, and rising and coming forward upon the floor. Died, are you sure of that? Troth, am I, said Dinmont, for it made nae SMA noise in the countryside. He died just at the rope of the stocking and furniture, it stopped pit the rope, and mony folk were disappointed. They said he was the last of an old family too, and mony were sorry, for good blood's scarcer in Scotland than it has been. Dead, replied the old woman, whom our readers have already recognized as their acquaintance Meg Merrilees. Dead. That quits a scores. And did ye say he died without an heir? I did he, good wife, and the estate selled by the same token, for they said, they couldna have selled it, if there had been an heir male. Selled, echoed the gypsy, with something like a scream, and wha durst buy Ellangowan that was not of Bertram's blood, and wha could tell whether the bonny knave bairn may not come back to claim his ain, wha durst buy the estate and the castle of Ellangowan? Troth, good wife, just know they writer chiels that buys a thing, they see him glossin, I think. Glossin gibby glossin, that I have carried in my creels 100 times, for his mother wasna muckle better than Missel, he to presume to buy the barony of Ellangowan, good be why us, it is an awful world, I wished him ill, but no sic a downfa as a that neither weighs me. Weighs me to think o't. She remained a moment silent, but still opposing with her hand the farmer's retreat, who, betwixt every question, was about to turn his back, but good-humouredly stopped on observing the deep interest his answers appeared to excite. It will be seen and heard of earth and sea will not hold their peace langer. Can ye say if the same man be now the sheriff of the county that has been assayee for some years past? Nah, he's got some other berth in Edinburgh, they say, but good day, good wife, I'm on ride. She followed him to his horse, and, while he drew the girths of his saddle, adjusted the wayless, and put on the bridle, still plied him with questions concerning Mr. Bertram's death, and the fate of his daughter, on which, however, she could obtain little information from the honest farmer. Did ye ever see a place they see Derncleugh, about a mile frae the place of Ellangowan? I what will have I, good wife, a wild looking den it is, why a ween old wazo sheelin sonder, I saw it when I gied ower the ground yn that wanted to take the farm. It was a blithe bit aunt, said Meg, speaking to herself. Did ye notice if there was an old willow tree that's maist blown down, but yet its roots are in the earth, and it hangs ower the bit burn mony a day hay I wrought my stocking, and sat on my sunkie, a stool, under that saw. Hout, deals I the wife, why her saws, and her sunkies, and Ellangowan's, Godsake, woman, let me away, there's saxpence to ye to buy half a muchkin, instead o' clavering about they old world stories. Thanks to ye, goodman, and now ye hae answered o' my questions, and never speered wherefore I asked fain, I'll gie you a bit canny, prudent, advice, and ye mauna speer what for neither. Tib Mumps will be out why the stirrup dram in a gliffing, asterisk twinkling, he'll ask ye whether ye gang our Willie's bray, or through Conscothard Moss tell her ony ain ye like, but be sure, speaking low and emphatically, to tack the ain ye dinna tell her. The farmer laughed and promised, and the gypsy retreated. Will you take her advice, said Brown, who had been an attentive listener to this conversation. That will I know, the Randy Queen. Nah, I had far rather Tib Mumps ken which way I was gone than her, though Tib's no muckle to lippen, asterisk trust, to neither, and I would advise ye on no account to stay in the house a night. In a moment after, Tib, the landlady, appeared with her stirrup cup, which was taken off. She then, as Meg had predicted, inquired whether he went the hill or the moss road. He answered, the latter, and, having bid Brown good-bye, and again told him, he depended on seeing him at Charlie's Hope, the morn at latest, he rode off at a round pace.